Morning class. This is for project step 1. The sales manager for an insurance agency has 3 offices in Wichita, Kansas. She's using an Excel worksheet to analyze the agency's financial performance and asks for help creating advanced types of charts and pivot tables to provide an overview. Go to the policy sold worksheet, which summarizes the number of insurance policies sold from 2016 to 2021. She asks to illustrate the trend in the data and forecast policy sales for the next 2 years. Click on the policy sold. Here's the data we want. Create a scatter chart based on range B2 through H3. Add a linear forecast trend line to the chart to project sales to 2013. And it asks us to resize and position the chart so that it covers the range B4 to H18. So we're going to go to insert. The type of chart we want is a scatter chart, which is this icon with the scatter looking dots all over it. So here's the chart. It also asks us to add a linear forecast trend line. Do that by add chart elements, trend line, linear forecast. There it is. Next thing it says is to resize and position the chart so that it covers the range B4 to H18. So B4 to H18. All right, that was step 1. Morning class. This is for project step 1. The sales manager for an insurance agency has 3 offices in Wichita, Kansas. She's using an Excel worksheet to analyze the agency's financial performance and asks for help creating advanced types of charts and pivot tables to provide an overview. Go to the policy sold worksheet, which summarizes the number of insurance policies sold from 2016 to 2021. She asks to illustrate the trend in the data and forecast policy sales for the next 2 years. Click on the policy sold. Here's the data we want. Create a scatter chart based on range B2 through H3. Add a linear forecast trend line to the chart to project sales to 2013. And it asks us to resize and position the chart so that it covers the range B4 to H18. So we're going to go to insert. The type of chart we want is a scatter chart, which is this icon with the scatter looking dots all over it. So here's the chart. It also asks us to add a linear forecast trend line. Do that by add chart elements, trend line, linear forecast. There it is. Next thing it says is to resize and position the chart so that it covers the range B4 to H18. So B4 to H18. All right, that was step 1. Okay, for step 2, we're going to go to the sales table worksheet, which contains a table named policies and details about insurance policies sold in 2020 and 2021. So click over to the sales table. Here are the policies. Sonia wants to display the amount of revenue by branch. So insert the sum of revenue 2021 by branch, recommended pivot table. This is for Windows users. For Mac users, you want to insert a pivot table based on the policies table into a new worksheet and add the branch and field names as rows and the revenue as the 2021 field value. So here's the table we're working out of. We're going to go to Insert, choose Pivot Table. It's going to use that table that we've created and put it into a new worksheet. Okay. I'm going to drag it into the end to keep up with it. Okay, so it says insert a pivot table. We've done that. Add branch and field agent, field ID fields, or agent ID fields as rows. So branch is a row, agent ID. We'll drag down and make a row. You can see it creates the pivot table for us. And we want to add the revenue 2021 field as a value. So here's revenue 2021. I'm going to add it as a value. Use revenue by branch as the name of the new worksheet. So I'm going to copy that name, rename the worksheet. Revenue by branch. Apply the Coral pivot style, medium 12 style to the pivot table. So you just click into your pivot table, click into the design, expand it. You're going to look for the Coral pivot style medium. So that's 10. There's Coral pivot style medium 12. So in the medium section, it's the second row, fifth one over. So we've done these two items. I like them to keep track where we're at. Okay, remove the agent ID field from the rows area. So here's the agent ID. Right click and remove the field. See, it narrows our table. Add the revenue 2020 field as the first field in the values area. So here's revenue 2020. Let's try that again. There we go. It's in there twice now. Field. I was going to remove agent count because that does not pertain to what we're doing. Change the number format of the two value fields to currency with 0 decimal places and the $ symbol. So we come over here to our values and we right click on a value, do field settings, and we're going to click on the number button here. We'll change it to currency, no decimal places, and the symbol sign. Click OK, and OK. You can see it changed it for the revenue 2020. Now we're going to do the same for 2021. Right click. I'm going to go back to do that. Right click on the sum of revenue, go to field settings, choose the number button, choose the currency, move the decimal places to 0, click OK, and OK. We can see our number is there. Last step of step 2 is to use 2020 revenue as the column heading on B3 and 2021 revenue as the column heading in C3. So one way to do this is to right click on the value, go to field settings, change the name here. Change the field name to 2020 revenue. Click OK. You You can see the title for this column is changed here. The other way you can do it is you can double click on the heading name here in the pivot table, and it'll also let you edit the same field. Okay, so those two headings, column headings, are updated. Step 3, Sonia wants to include the average revenue in the pivot table. Add a calculated field to the pivot table named average revenue that adds the revenue 2020 and the revenue 2021 field values, and then divides the result by 2. Use average 2020 2021 as the column label in D3. Okay, so we're going to go to we're going to click into our pivot table. We're going to go to Pivot Table Analyze. We're going to find the Fields Item and Set button. And we're going to add a calculated field. So Pivot Table Analyze, Fields, Items, and Sets, and Calculated Field. Okay, so the field name is going to be Average Revenue. And the formula, it's going to be revenue for 2020 plus revenue for 2021. So I'm doing parentheses because that's going to be the first part of our equation. Revenue, adding revenue 2020 to revenue 2021. If you remember, because it's a 2-year span, we're going to divide the result by 2. That's what your formula looks like. Click add, and you can see it's now here in the list of fields. We're going to click OK. And now this has been changed to be the average of each of these locations. The other thing we need to do is change this to say average 2020 to 2021. And click OK. Okay, for step 4, Sonia wants to display the revenue by branch data as a chart. Insert a combo pivot chart based on the new pivot table. Display the 2020 revenue and 2021 revenue data as a clustered column chart, and the average 2020 to 2021 data as a line chart. Include a secondary axis for the average 2020 to 2021 data. Okay, so what we need to do here is we're going to click into our pivot table. We're going to go to Insert. I'm going to choose Combo Chart here. All right, so we need to edit our data. So if we go to Design and select Data, actually it's done everything I think for us, but let's just confirm. So it's got 2020 revenue, 2021 revenue, and average it. Okay, good job. Okay, there's one last part to step 4 is to include a secondary axis for the average 2020-2021 data. So to do that, we click on the lines for this data. We right click on it and do Format Data Series. You'll see that it allows us to add a secondary axis to this chart. Okay, so we're going to move right into step 5. I want to format the pivot chart to make it easier to interpret and to coordinate with the pivot table. So we display the legend at the bottom of the chart. We do that by selecting the chart, going to Design, Add Chart Element, Legend, move it to the bottom. And then hide the field list and all the field buttons to remove clutter from the worksheet. So the field list is part of the pivot table. So go to the pivot table, analyze, and you can just click this button here. All right. Then change the maximum balance for the value axis and left to 9,000. So this is the value axis we're looking for. We want to format the axis, and you can see here's the bounds, and we want to change the maximum bounds to 9. Oh, it's 9 million, not 9,000. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equals 9 million. There we go. The chart should change now. Yep. Is that? Then we're going to change the pivot table colors to monochromatic palette 4. So with the table selected, go to design, change color, monochromatic number 4. And then resize and position the chart so it covers A9 to D24. So grab the chart, move it to A9, move it across to D, and then down to 24, which is pretty much at. So there we go. Save, and that's the end of step 5. Step 6, Sonia asked you to provide a quick way to filter the pivot table and pivot chart by policy type. Add a slicer based on the policy type field and apply the Coral slicer style form. So I'm going to click into our pivot table, go to Analyze. There's a button for Insert Slicer. And we want to use policy type. Okay. See, it creates a slicer. We want to change the style to the Coral. Yep, that matches. Okay, display the slicer buttons in 2 columns. So we do that by, you've clicked into the slicer, and here's where it says columns. So there's the 2 buttons, or 2 columns, and now the buttons are in 2-column layout. And then move and resize the slicer so that the upper corner is in E3. Okay. And the lower right corner is G8. There we go. Use the slicer filter, the pivot table and pivot chart to display auto, home, and life policies. To make the filter work, you have to click on the box here on the top top right, and you click the ones you want. See, we want home, auto, life, so we don't want this one, but we want. Turn the filter off for a moment. It's been a little stubborn. There we go. So now we've got auto, home, life, and I use the filter button and the shift key to be able to select that. So I can save this, and we're done with step 6 now. Okay, we're on to number 7. Sonia wants to insert a pivot table that includes other policy information so that she can analyze the sales of life insurance policies in 2021. So we're going to return to the sales table worksheet and create a pivot table based on the policies table. So we're on the sales table worksheet. I'm going to go to Insert, choose Pivot Table. So the data was selected as a policies table. We're going to add it to a new worksheet. Using, we're going to use policies by type as the worksheet name. Make sure that, so it says make sure the add this data to the data model checkbox is unchecked. This is for Windows users. Mac users, there's no checkbox. The next sentence says display the policy types and then the agent IDs as the headers, row headers. So policy type and then agent ID. The branch offices as the column headings. Policies sold in 2021 as the values. And the years of experience as the filter. So filter is years of experience, column is branch, the rows is agent ID and policy type, and some of the policies. Number 8, Sonia wants to improve the appearance of the pivot table and focus on policies sold by agents with 10 or more years of experience. Change the layout of the pivot table to the outline form to separate the policy types from the agent IDs. Now, one thing you need to make sure is that your agent ID is actually after your policy type. So you want to have policy type and then agent ID, and you'll see that change in the pivot table. So what we want to do is in the pivot table, we want to go to the pivot table toolbar. They click on the design section of the toolbar, and you want to go to report layout button and then show an outline form. Okay, so we've done that. Now the next step is to hide the field headers to streamline the design of the pivot table. So back to pivot table analyze, click the button that says field headers. That'll remove those. Then we want to display the subtotals at the bottom of each group. So to do that, we go back to the design area. I want to click on the subtotals button on the top left of Excel and show all subtotals at bottom of group. That adds the subtotals. And then finally, we want to filter the pivot table to show the policies sold by agents with 10 or more years of experience. So we use our years of experience filter at the top left of our table. We want to uncheck everything except for 10 or more. And then you can close the filter. And this is how your pivot table should look. Or number 9, Sonia wants to know more details about the policies sold by the top selling agent. Drill down into the auto policies sold in the downtown branch by BC1283. Use top agent as the name of the new worksheet. So back on our policies by type, it says we want to drill down into the auto policies sold in the downtown branch by BC83. So this is the one we want to look at. We double click on it. It opens a new spreadsheet with this information, and you want to rename it to say top agent. For number 10, it says return to the sales table worksheet. Sonia wants to compare the average revenue generated by insurance agents based on their years of experience. Insert a pivot table and pivot chart on a new worksheet using average revenue as the worksheet name. So from the sales table, we're going to go to insert, pivot table, make it into a new worksheet, rename that worksheet to average revenue. Okay, so we also want to add, insert here, a pivot chart, which is on the insert toolbar. Click into your pivot table and the pivot chart will come up. So you can have the pivot chart here, click in it to highlight it. With a blank pivot chart selected, which we did by clicking into it, add the years of experience field to the axis categories area. So years of experience, we're going to drag to the axis categories area. Revenue 2020 is the first field of values field. So here's revenue 2020 is the values field. And revenue 2021 is the second values field. We want to change the value field settings of both value fields to display averages using the currency number format by with two decimal places and the dollar sign. So we'll right click on the field settings under values, change the average, change it to average, and also change it to number currency with two decimal places and the dollar sign. Click OK. OK again. And same with the second one for 2021. We want to change to average. Numbers currency, two decimal places and the dollar sign. Click OK. And OK again. See our chart changed. Change the pivot chart layout to layout 3. So it's going to be design. We want layout 3. And use revenue by years of experience as the chart title. Move and right resize the pivot chart so it's in the upper left corner as in A9, and the lower right corner is in cell C24. So we can grab the chart, move it to A9. This should go over to C24, so we want to make it a little bit bigger. And that should be all for number 10. For number 11, it says to return to the sales table worksheet. Sonia asked you to create a chart comparing the number of policies sold in 2021 to the 3 categories of experience for each agent. She wants to find the median policy sold in 2021 by experience and any sales totals that are outliers in each category. We're going to create a box and whisker chart to do this. It'll be based on years of experience and the policies data. So the first thing we want to do is we can actually select our data here for policies 2021. So we're going to go to the insert toolbar. We're going to click on the button for charts that says statistical. And we're going to find the box that says box and whisper. So here's the start of our chart. We need to narrow down our data a bit. So we're going to go to select the select data button. And so the chart range is okay. We want to take out everything here except for the policies in 2021. And then we want to make the axis labels to select only the years of experience. So we'll go from D2 to D40. One change to the select data there is I put too much in. We need to do D3 to D40. So we've got our box and whisker chart. It says to move it to a new worksheet. So we're going to click the plus sign down here at the bottom to create a new worksheet. We're going to rename it. It says to name it 2021 policies by experience. So now that we've got that worksheet created, we're going to go back to the sales table. We're going to right click on the chart. We're going to cut it. We'll go over to our 2021 policies by experience worksheet. And now we're going to paste it. So you can see it kept the numbers and formatting. And if we were to go up to chart design and do select data, you can see that it's still referencing the sales table for its data. Okay, so it says use 2021 policies sold by agent experience as the chart title. And format the data series to show the inner points so the data values appear as dots on the chart. And then we're going to apply the default gradient fill to make the dots easier to see. So we're going to click on our data chart. You can see that it, for box and whisker, it says show inner points. We want to click on that. You can see it adds the points. And we want to go over to the fill, and we want to do the fill is going to be gradient. And that way we can see our dots in our chart. And that's all we need for this number 11. And that completes the work, the project for Excel for topic 6.